All right, so we're live now with Immortal. How are you doing?
Oh, just fine and dandy. Hope you're having a good day.
Yeah, I'm good too. I was just wondering if you wanted to start off by explaining your channel a little bit and what kind of content you usually do on there when you post.
Okay, well, I mean, since the start, it's really been all MGTOW related content, but I'm on there to upload really anything that I want to. So the topics are wide ranging. I just started with MGTOW, but I'm going to do later videos on people who are child free. That's a big topic of passion or something I'm passionate about. Anarchism, antinatalism, very taboo subject, but I still am going to talk about it. And then more on the lighter side, I like to review my favorite movies. I like to review anime and comic books. So that's kind of the more fun nerd side of my channel that I'm going to let people see later on. And so it's going to range from serious subjects to something that I want to talk about, stuff that makes me happy. So it's a channel that pretty much exists for me to upload whatever I want. That's kind of why I changed my name to just Immortal, because I'm representative more than just one thing.
Yeah, that's a good idea, I think, because I find when people label themselves with MGTOW at the end, then you just assume they have a certain channel. Whereas if you just have your name something else like you have in Immortal, then people don't know what to expect, so they're gonna check out your channel and see a whole bunch of different things on there.
Yeah, yeah. So, well, thanks for agreeing with that idea. That's where I pretty much had the same thought process as you did.
Yeah, because I actually couldn't even find you for a while. I'm like, where did Immortal MGTOW go? I'm like, oh, he's just Immortal. Okay, there we
Yeah.
go. So I found you that way. And I actually just want to add that I really agree that having all different dimensions to your channel is a good idea as long as they kind of mesh well together. Like on my channel, I do mental health, I do science, I do nutrition, so they all kind of go together. But instead of just saying I'm doing the one thing, and you're not catering to as many people if you just stick to the one subject, right?
Yeah, absolutely. And I've also had to learn to put people in specific circles, because for a while I would just add anyone that I kind of got along with into just one massive circle. But I can't tag everybody in that circle, because not everyone in this massive group of friends that I have, is going to be interested in MGTOW. So what I've done is recently I've been like seeking out, because my next video is going to be about my favorite anime. So I'm obviously not going to tag all of my MGTOW friends in this anime video. They're not going to give a crap, right? So every new anime person that I've been kind of meeting on Google Plus and on YouTube, I figured out how to put them in their own circle, so that when a video of that nature comes out, I'll only tag them, because they're going to be the only ones that are interested anyway.
Yeah, that's smart. And I actually really have to start doing the same thing and kind of narrowing down my circles because I invited basically anyone I was following the other day, and then people I knew from my daily life showed up, and they're like, "What the heck's this? What's MGTOW?" I'm like, "Uh oh."
Yeah,
So
yeah, nope, nope.
you got to be careful. You got to be like real life friends, internet friends, and then you have to divide those internet friends into like science and mental health and all that. So I think that's a good idea. That way you don't get notifications from people going like, why is someone sending me a link about like the Discovery Channel? Like, where did this come from? And you're just like,
Yeah.
this is the wrong circles here. So I think that's cool that you're kind of taking a stance on doing fun, playful things for yourself, and then you're also taking a more serious note to help people. Did you want to talk about what's been one of the harder videos for you to make if you're comfortable talking about it?
Oh, easily. It would be my, I guess, language warning, but it's just in the title. It would probably be my "I'm 50 Shades of Fucked Up." But it's not only was that the hardest one, but it's also the video I'm the proudest of.
Yeah, and what is it that makes you the most proud about it, would you say?
Well, it was pretty much a just a revelation of a side of myself that I had been ashamed to reveal to people for many years. And because when I tried to be brave enough to reveal it to people who I'd been intimate with, saying, okay, this is something I would like for us to do. And every time the subject seemed to come up, it was always, I was met with, you're psychotic. This is sick. Do you have some kind of mental problem? You really need therapy. I guess that's why I'm here with you, Lisa.
That's hilarious.
Maybe I did take their advice, huh? But So it was not met kindly. And so I very quickly just thought of something, look, this is something I'm just going to indulge in private, online, and no one needs to freaking know about it, because every time I seem to mention it, I get a negative reaction.
Right.
Um, in Thankfully, I didn't just give up on that. And so what I started to do first is like, maybe I should find people online first. And then once I realized that they are actually agree with this like I do, then I should meet those people in person. And so I kind of changed my strategy up. And so when I actually sought out the right people online to say like, okay, hey, are you into this too? And when they say yes, they're like, hey, we're having like a meetup in say downtown Houston, or we're having a meetup here in Dallas. You should come hang out with all of us and see what this is all about. See how people play with each other. And I have to tell you, it was surreal. Like the things that go on there. Like these are like the kindest, weirdest people I have ever met. And but hey, I can't. I have to speak for myself too. I'm just as weird as they are. But it's wonderful because I refer to them as we're all wonderfully weird, all of us.
Yeah.
Whether we want to admit it or not, we have a little quirky side to all of us. So I finally, with that video, I just said, now you know what? It's not something that I'm ashamed of anymore.
That's awesome. And I honestly, I believe this for a long time, and I don't think everyone sees the value in it, but I think that with vulnerability really comes strength out of it. It's the hardest thing to do, to make yourself vulnerable and to admit things about yourself that not everyone's going to agree with, or, hard confessions and things like, I mean, we were discussing this in private a while ago, and I was saying how my hardest vlog was the one I did about infidelity in my past and dealing with that. And that was just one of those things where when you post it, I don't know if you had this moment too, but after you've posted it, you go, should I just remove this video? Like, it's not too late, you go like, I could just take this down. But to be able to have the strength to keep it up and to tell your story about hard topics is there's a lot of merit to that, I think.
Yeah. I actually never had that. I never had any sort of pause after I uploaded it. It was just I got myself to a place where I was like, you know what, it's time. It's time for me to just air this out. And you know what was because what's cool is I love meeting people of the same mindset. And so I'm thinking YouTube is a huge, I mean, it's a huge forum of people. Google Plus is a huge forum of people. So talk about um, the best way to build that network up. And when I did release it, I did have people contact me like, "Oh, hey, I'm on that website too," or "Hey, we both like the same things." And so in the end, it was actually very beneficial for me, because I am also trying to build that community of friends, not just in real life, but also in the online sphere. And so really, I was happy I did it.
Yeah, and it can be helpful, like you said, because you meet like-minded people, but also I think maybe you'll help people be able to kind of admit, how they are or what they're interested in, and kind of give them that extra little push, like I feel when you talk about the harder subjects, then other people will be like, well, if they're talking about it, I can do the same. And then it's very freeing for a lot of people to be able to open up about those things. So that's really awesome that you were able to make that video. So you were able to meet a lot of people through the process.
Well, not physically meet, but yeah, there were a few that I was able to that contacted me after that. They either commented in the video or just messaged me through Google Plus, and were just like, oh my gosh, this is it. I think it was interesting because a lot of the people contacting me seemed to be from overseas, and they seemed almost amazed that oh, an American likes this. They seemed shocked that this is like acceptable in America. And I'd venture to say that it really still isn't. I think the whole popularity of 50 Shades is helping with that, but I still really believe that 50, the whole BDSM related stuff is, I would venture to say, would still be viewed in a taboo lens in America.
Yeah. Yeah, I would agree with that. But I think it's true. The 50 Shades thing is bringing it a little bit to the forefront. And it's interesting because I feel like a lot of people, like I know that movie was geared more towards females. And, I'd speak to some of my friends about it. I'd actually read those books. I never saw the movie. I'm just more interested in reading it and kind of imagining for myself than actually seeing it played out in a very, you know, specific way. That's just how I am. I don't have to be a visual person. I know that men are typically different in that way, but you know, broad generalizations right there. But some of the girls I was speaking to, they said like they were too shy or too embarrassed to go and watch the movie, you know. So it's interesting how there is a lot of, I would say stigma, but you know, a little bit of shyness when it comes to these things, right? Some people are really scared to discuss it or watch, you know, movies like 50 Shades.
Yeah, and it's actually when I've been lucky enough to play with somebody, sometimes that initial shyness and that reservation actually adds a heck of a lot more to pretty much the climactic thing, which it revolves around this. It's the fact that when you're able, and this is what they tell me, what the women who have played with me have told me, that when you trust someone to the extent where you render your body completely like you're in the most vulnerable position, and when you're in that position, you are pretty much entrusting your life to that other person, because you say, okay, you know, in this position that I'm in, he could do anything that he wanted. I mean, anything. Yes, I could say, I want you to do A, B, and C and not X, Y, and Z. But if I'm in this position, what's to stop him from doing whatever the hell he wants to, right?
Right.
So when it actually goes exactly the way she has wanted it to, and she realizes that, oh my gosh, I gave every bit of power to this person and he didn't abuse it once. That's a very erotic thing for a submissive to experience. So when it goes well, they say it's the most powerfully erotic thing they've ever done.
Wow. I wonder if you're going to convince some of my viewers here. They're going to be like, you know what? That Immortal guy, he he changed my perspective. You might get a few phone numbers after this. Who knows?
Oh God, they're probably going to be horrified. They're just like, I need to turn this off, Jesus.
No, but actually listening to this is very interesting to me, and I see how it can be, you know, it does take a lot of trust and almost in a way a strange commitment to a person, right? Because you really are entrusting them with so much and allowing yourself to be vulnerable and to just open up to them and everything. So, and I'm wondering, because I know you have kind of a unique perspective also when it comes to love and relationships. You really embrace polyamory, right? Do you want to talk a little bit about that as well?
Oh yeah. Well, I know I don't want to go into it in too much detail, because I know that's something that you don't really find agreeable. But it's just, as I've told you before, I've had it happen where a previous relationship where this person or this woman started sleeping around in order to kind of make me jealous.
Right.
And so I would marry her quicker. So it's just like, are you sure you want to lose me? Look, I'm going and sleeping around with all these guys. Like, doesn't that make you jealous? And it really didn't, because she would go and say all those things, and then she'd come back to me at the end of the day and she would still be as affectionate as she was. She didn't break up with me. It was like she was doing that, but yet I wasn't being deprived of anything that I needed from her. And so when that happened to me, ever since then, I've just never understood where it's just like, if someone does that, but at the end of the day, they still want to come back to their partner and they don't want to deprive them of anything. Let's just say they messed up, right? And they're just like, look, I got drunk and I was lonely and depressed. We had a big fight and I just slept with somebody and it was stupid. So it's like, I don't want to be with that person. I want to be with you. So, and I don't understand when people cannot forgive that person for that, because it's like they're clearly articulating the fact that they want to be with you. Even though this happened, you are their primary. So what's the deal? So I'll just say that quote unquote cheating has never hurt me. I'll say the only thing that has ever hurt me in a relationship has been when it ends. The only thing that hurts me is a breakup. Cheating, I don't give a damn about. But if someone breaks up with me, I let that hurt.
Yeah, and you know what? Honestly, your perspective, like even though you started off before you got into this by saying like, I know you don't agree with this or whatever, but you know, I'll talk about it a bit. I actually am fascinated by this perspective, because I told you that myself, I would kind of struggle with monogamy versus polyamory, you know, a few years ago. And I just decided that monogamy was for me. It's something that I value, but I mean, to each their own, and it doesn't mean that I don't want to hear you talk about your perspective. And in a way, your perspective is kind of, I'm going to go as far as saying it's kind of a beautiful perspective to think like, even if someone was to do something physical with someone, it doesn't mean that they just don't give a damn about you and they just, you know, they said, screw you, I'm going to do this and I don't care about you. If they come back to you and they still love you and you're still a person that they want to have that emotional connection with and that deeper connection with, so to say, you're the primary. I mean, that is something. And I've spoken to a few people in the mental health community, quite a few that believe in polyamory or kind of, you know, having like a relationship and moving on to the next and not always just being in like a, you know, 20-year relationship plus, right? So it's a very refreshing perspective too.
Yeah, and it's also, I think, there's a really good book that I think either you should, and this is not to change your opinion, but I think for anyone who might be ignorant or have a negative view of that lifestyle should read a book called Sex at Dawn. Um, it's really it gets into the science behind the case that our species is far more promiscuous than we acknowledge,
Right.
and the whole case is that, look, this is what we're going to battle with, and for some people they should just look at it and say, like, look, I feel this way, instead of trying to pretend, like, to artificially make themselves monogamous when they're not. They should just be told, like, look, I'm not monogamous, and here's a scientific case explaining why I am not, instead of trying to act like someone that I know I'm not going to be happy with. Like, just live the lifestyle that you know is going to make you happy. And I'm glad that book exists, because it really does plead the case pretty good to explain, like, why people sleep around, why people seem to be promiscuous, and instead of looking at those people and say you're a player or you're a whore or something like that, instead understand that really this is the human species. And
Yeah.
yeah, a lot of people may be playing monogamy, but it doesn't. I love how in the book this guy used a clever analogy. He goes, and this is not, knocking anyone who's vegan, but it's just like, he said this brilliant point where he goes, look, if you're vegan, you may be eating, like, your vegan diet, okay? You may like, and that's something where they may not like doing it, but they're doing it, say, for a moral reason or for a health reason. It's like, so you may be, it's like, just because you're eating these type of foods doesn't mean that bacon stops smelling good. You know?
Yeah, it's
So,
hilarious. You know, just on that note is a little aside, but it's kind of funny. You know, I was talking to this to some people in the community too, how it's like, okay, so vegans, let's say it was for, you know, the moral reasons and all this, but there's so many like vegan products that are shaped like chicken and shaped and taste like beef. It's just funny that you're eating what you're trying to, you know, to save, basically. It's just like you're imitating that. I always found that kind of funny, you know. Then ex-pal would joke around about chicken fries and like all this stuff like that. It's just, I mean, this is an unrelated thing. I respect those that want to go vegan, vegetarian, and all that. I do think it can be a healthy lifestyle, but I completely get what you're saying. That's really funny, actually.
yeah, I,
Oh man.
I I thought that was really hilarious. Like, when he, not only when he wrote it, but also like he was doing like a Q&A, and he pretty much said the same thing, and it got a lot of laughs from the audience. But it does make sense. It's like, oh, look, don't deny that this part of you exists, and it will
Right.
exist. Okay,
Right.
it's there right below the surface, and you either have the self-discipline to keep it suppressed, or if you don't have that self-discipline, you just need to be the type of person that doesn't say, look, I'm not going to lie and say that I can go vegan, in a sense, when I still have this insatiable urge to eat meat. Like, just be real with yourself, for God's sakes. If you know you can't be with one person and just one person until you die, then don't do it. Don't make the vows. Don't promise the person that. Just live that lifestyle. It's
Yeah.
simple.
Yeah, and I think that there's something very authentic about that. But I think the main message I would say would be to, if you're deciding this is how you are, you have to communicate that to your partner. You have to be clear about that, because if you're not, you're just kind of fooling both of you. You know, that's the problem when people say, like you said, take the vows, or they're with someone, they say, oh yeah, this is a closed, committed relationship, and then they get tempted and they make mistakes. Then do you know how bad cheating is viewed in this society? People they give it as like a humongous sin. It's the worst thing. Oh my God, it's unforgivable and all this. And I mean, sadly, a lot of people go through it. I think a lot of relationships involve that. And I've just been watching some TV shows with my fiance, and it keeps coming up. Like every show, I'm like, God, everyone's unfaithful. Like we were watching Dexter and we're watching Heroes, and it's just like everybody's just a friggin' cheater, you know? Like and it's seen as such a horrible, horrible thing, right? And I mean, even in like classic movies like The Notebook, which is, you know, a huge like love story, there's infidelity in there too. It's everywhere, and it's seen as such a horrible thing, but humans do it all the time, it seems. So
Oh, well, funny you said that, because in The Notebook, I don't think anyone, when technically she was with that other guy, right?
yeah,
With the James Marsden character, and yet they like had their moment of infidelity. I don't think anyone was like, "Ew, they're cheating." I think everyone was like, "Oh, how romantic," right? So
exactly.
it really is. It's not uniform across the board, because technically, like you said, what she did was cheating. But no, I don't think anyone who watched the movie in that scene of them kissing in the rain or whatever was just like, oh my gosh, you know, she's a cheating whore or whatever. No, they were like, oh how romantic, right? So,
Exactly. I was literally like, hold the phone, and I'm just looking around. I'm like, am I the only one who's like, look what she did? Like, you couldn't break up with that other guy first, really? Like,
yeah,
I
yeah.
get it was romantic and you're in the rain, but come on now. Like you said, you friggin' married the guy or whatever. I
Uh,
mean, that's just how I see it. Since I choose to live my life, you know, with monogamy, that's a choice. I mean, it is something that it is a choice, and you commit to it if you choose to do so. I understand it's not, you know, something by nature, of course, but you know, I've had a rough past too, where I've had those temptations, and other people I've been with have had those temptations, and you know, it's become a messed up situation. But I've decided at this point in my life, I just don't want to play with fire anymore. I want to be a committed person, and this is something that I've chosen and I'm 100% committed to. So I think it is a choice, but I do believe, like as you said, it's kind of, well, it's kind of like battling your biology, since we are by nature probably supposed to be polyamorous. So
yeah, it's actually quite interesting, and if this is TMI, you can just cut me off and be like, "Hey, shut the hell up." But it's actually they find that everyone talks about chimp this, chimp that, and how we're related. But a lot of people forget the other ape that we probably have just as much in common with as the chimpanzee, and that's the bonobo.
mm,
And the bonobos are they're actually a very sexual but very peaceful um, group of apes, and how they maintain peace is kind of interesting. They literally make love and not war, and how they do this is in their little ape society. Sorry if I'm sounding stupid here, but like in their little
I love it. Ape
their little
society.
bonobo society, whenever they sense that a member of their when another bonobo is getting aggressive or tense, they'll actually like go and have sex with that other bonobo in order to like placate them and calm them down.
That's amazing.
And so like when the whole community gets like, they can sense like everyone's kind of charged and on edge, like these bonobos will have like massive orgies.
Oh my God.
Yeah, and you know,
The visuals, Immortal.
okay, sorry, but
It's
but
okay.
really, but literally, it's something where they how do I phrase this correctly? It's, I don't know, they yeah, it's just it's a they're just it's a peaceful, and it's one of those things where everyone's like, we're the only. It also shows that sex exists for more than just babies,
Right.
because there's that argument like, that's what sex is for. Okay, it's like, but actually what you look at, the common use for sex, if we're being real, is for pleasure and bonding with the other person. That's
Right.
actually why it exists, because I think they said, like, they had a statistic going around, I think it was a few years ago, that I think it was, of all the people that had sex on any given day on planet Earth that year, they actually calculated that of all the people having sex, that I think 0.4% actually of all the sexual encounters that happened, only 0.4% actually resulted in a pregnancy.
Wow.
And
Okay.
so that goes to show you, is like, is pregnancy really what we use this for? Um, you know, because everyone's like, oh, we use it to get pregnant and then form our little nuclear family units, and that's just what we're wired to do. But all the evidence suggests to the contrary, that we enjoy engaging in sex to bond with people and to pleasure ourselves.
Right. And if you feel comfortable just disclosing a bit more about yourself when it comes to your own personal choices, when it comes to kids and all this, that would be interesting.
Oh, well, I'm definitely not going to have any.
Yeah.
That's why my first major relationship of 3 years ended, because of that.
Okay. And how old were you back then?
Oh God, what was that? 2011.
Okay.
So yeah, I was still, no, I was out of college by then. What am I saying? So probably 26, 27.
Okay. And you
And
were
I,
feeling the pressure, I guess, a little bit, or you're being pressured, so to say, in that relationship.
oh yeah, yeah. Well, I mean, I let myself feel the pressure. Let's be clear on that. I
Right.
control my own emotions, but um, and the reason why, because everyone's like, you didn't know, like, why didn't you just tell her you didn't want, kids from the start? Then you could have avoided this drama, because that was their whole deal. Like, you lied to me, you were deceptive, and I tried to tell her, it's like, look, when we met, I honestly didn't have an answer for you. Like, I didn't have an honest answer, because what guy in college having the time of his life is seriously thinking about this? I know I wasn't. I was just like, look, I'm having a good time, and
Yeah.
no one had bothered to ask me, and I hadn't bothered to ask myself, do you want kids or not? And so I was like, I'm skating through life right now, having a good time. Why would I think about that? And then all of a sudden I meet her, and it was wonderful at the start, but then she asked that question. And so all of a sudden, something I'd given no thought to, I was like, oh shit, I think I better start thinking about this now.
Yeah.
And when I honestly did, I was like, look, if I'm being honest, if I'm evaluating the lifestyle and what it's going to require, I was like, I just told her, I was like, I'm satisfied with you. I just want you in my life. I want it to be just the two of us, happy and loving. And it's like, because you're all that I need. And so in a sense, I was almost kind of insulted by the fact that, like, you're not enough to make me happy. I need more than just you. And I
Mhm.
was just, at the time, I mean, now I don't give a crap, because that that was what she wanted. And so at the end of the day, we just weren't compatible, and it was not worth arguing about that. Yeah, but at the time I was just like, why am I not enough for you? Why are you not just happy with me? And in a sense, I still kind of ask myself that question. I ask other people that question, where it's just like, are you lacking something? Is that why you kind of look at your spouse or significant other? It's just like, look, I need to have kids with you, or I'm leaving you.
Right.
It's
That's
just,
it's a lot of pressure to put on someone. And actually, it was interesting because my mom said it pretty well. She said, if you think you want kids now, that's a great thing if you feel the same way as the person you're with. But check in every once in a while, every year or two, see if you're on the same page. And if you're not, adapt to it, because she said people change. And it's very true. Maybe you're going to say, I want kids, I want kids. And I had this experience that I think I told you about, where I went to one of my fiance's good friends, and he had a kid, and he put on tons of weight. She put on tons of weight. They didn't seem healthy or happy. They were chasing around after their kids, stressed out of their mind. They had a couple cats. And when we left, my fiance said, so do you want kids? And I said, I really want a pet, And
okay.
and he smiled, and he was like, good, we're on the same page, And I think in the future, it's something we might consider. But obviously, there's a biological clock. But I'm 27, so I'm not under an immense amount of pressure at this point. So it's not, you don't want to feel like, oh my God, I'm on the clock, we have to do this now. I mean, that's a mistake. And I've known a lot of people that, I'm sure you know all about this, that have had the teenage pregnancies and all this, and they're
Oh
miserable now.
Lord.
Their life is virtually ruined. I mean, of course, they don't regret having the kid because they love their child, but I mean, you can imagine how much pressure that is, and I'm sure you see that in your job and everything. So.
Oh, you'd be amazed in the anonymity of the internet. Do you know how many posts I have seen from women that say they utterly regret doing it?
Really?
Oh yeah, I
Yeah.
think, and they took the page down, and it was like, interesting that they deleted this page. I wonder why they don't want people to know this. But by the time I had finished with it, I had read 1,900 different posts from women and men who were just like, if I could go back, I would not have the kids. I wouldn't. They
Yeah.
were just they, but of course, it's the bravery of anonymity. It's the bravery of the internet that allowed these people to come out and say, like, look, I could never look my kid in the face and say, I regret having you. I mean, that would just, I mean, that would be a shitty thing to do. Yeah, it's honest, but you don't want to traumatize your kid like that, because that's
Yeah.
harm them in so many ways, their ego, their self-esteem, whatever. But on the internet, it's safe for them to dump like that. It's just to emotionally dump on there and say, like, look, this was not a wise move. And so, like you're
Yeah.
saying, like, oh, these girls may, probably don't regret keeping their babies. They might very well end up regretting what they did, because some of these girls that I know are 14 years old.
Oh man, that's like something I can't even, wrap my mind around. And it's scary how promiscuity, it's younger and younger these days. I even remember in high school I was tutoring someone who was in like grade 8, and she missed a tutoring session, and then I saw her outside. I was like, hey, where were you? And she's like, this is literally what she said. She's like, I was fooling around in the woods with some boys. And I'm like, oh my God. It's like,
Wow.
well, please come to our next tutoring session, so it's just kind of scary to see that. And people, I just keep hearing that younger and younger now, there's more promiscuity, there's more, unprotected sex, there's more pregnancies, and it just it's really a problem. It's really terrifying.
Oh, I was kind of looking over in some of what people were writing in the little chat section of YouTube, but
Yeah.
I wanted to add in something about these play parties that I told you about, where I actually go to these like fetish events and you meet people.
Yeah.
Um, they're one thing that I learned from these people, that some of them are married, some of them are in long-term relationships, but there's one thing that I never sensed with these people. I never sensed possessiveness, and I didn't sense jealousy. And
Right.
an example of that was, like, a lot of people were there, and it was kind of interesting. They didn't even bat an eye at it. You're not allowed to take pictures at these events, right? Like,
Okay.
you can take pictures of what you're doing, but you can't, like, be irresponsible and catch someone in a picture. And I had the brave. It's like, why are you so uptight about pictures being taken? It's like, well, because a lot of people are here to cheat. And I was like,
Mm.
really? Like, wow, okay. But they didn't bat an eye about it. They're just like, yeah, that's what they're here to do, but we don't look down on them for it. And and it was one thing that stuck with me, because I was there, I think, for one session to learn how to use rope, because I absolutely was ignorant. I had no idea what to do, but I wanted to learn. And I went there just looking pathetic. I had no one there with me. I was there by myself with this like 20-foot length of rope in my hand. I was just like, I would like to learn how to tie someone up, but I have no one with me. And now I think it was a dom sub marriage, where, like, the husband was the dom and his wife was the submissive. And he saw me. Son, do you have no one to tie up? And I was like, no, sir, I don't. And he just looked at his wife, and he's like, you come here. And, like, in a very stern voice. And so she, like, came over, and he was like, kneel on the floor. And so she, like, knelt down, and he's like, hands behind your back, and she crossed her wrist, and he was like, practice on her. And I
Oh
was
my
like,
God.
and so, like, out of nowhere, and that's not something that I put together. Most people who have a girlfriend or a wife, they're, like, very possessive of them. They have this attitude, like, you just go up and you start a friendly conversation, like, you talking with my girl, you talking with my wife. They're
Exactly.
very territorial. And so this just blew me away. He was just like, you've got no one to tie up. Tie up my wife. I was just like,
Yeah, this was pretty surreal to me. I mean, the way it goes against societal norms in that sense, I'm blushing now, like, whoa. But it's just funny how, like, there's just so much pressure to, fit a certain mold and like timelines and this and that. And I think it's actually awesome that you're kind of going against these things and just doing the right thing for yourself. I think that's very commendable, because so many people fall into the pressure of the timeline and they're not necessarily happy, but they just go through with it anyways, because everyone's saying, when are you getting married? When are you having kids? And, it's just such a pressure for people these days.
yeah, and unnecessary one at that. When do people just learn the lesson, that in fact that it's just like, look, you have enough to deal with in making and nourishing your own existence and your own life, and ensuring your own joy and happiness, to be concerned with what other people outside of your circle are doing. Like,
Right.
let's be clear on that. All that energy and time that you waste trying to reform other people, you could actually be putting it into your own relationship that you're probably neglecting. So why don't you devote your energy to what matters? And that's you and whoever you're with or whoever your circle is, and just spend time on that. And don't worry about whatever the hell other people are doing.
Exactly, that's true. Because that could very easily ruin relationships. You hear stories about ultimatums, and if you don't propose to me by this time, or you don't do this by this time, then I'm leaving you. I mean, how is that a fair relationship? It just, and some people decide they don't want to get married. I mean, this happens a lot too when someone says, like, from the start, I told you I don't want to get married, and then the other person goes, okay, and then gets that day like, why aren't we married? I told you from the start I don't want to get married. And it just, people are clear, but there's always looking for double entendres and looking for double meanings of things, right? Where it's like, maybe I can make this person change to conform to my own selfish needs, And I think that's a huge problem in relationships these days.
Yeah, yeah. And I think that's where I believe that, polyamory for me is kind of an issue where it's just like, look, what when you're compatible with one person, when you don't fully see eye to eye on something, you don't need to just say, all right, now that we don't see eye to eye on every freaking thing, I'm cutting you off. We're done. Like,
Right.
just get out of my life. You don't need to be that callous about it, but you're like, okay, we're not compatible on this level, but this doesn't mean I'm going to stop wanting the things that I want. Like, I'm not going to force you to give them to me, but I'm not going to deprive myself either. So if we're compatible on this level, that's good. But I'm also going to have my needs met possibly with this other person if you're not willing to give them to me. And so you don't need to pressure the other person to do something that he or she doesn't want to do. And then, but yet at the same time, you don't have to be unhappily deprived of yourself.
Yeah, and I do see the merit in that. It's very interesting since, people do change, and I think it is the 7-year thing, the 7-year itch, right? And the fact that our cells are regenerating, we're changing as people. Sometimes what appealed to us 10 years ago just doesn't matter in the slightest anymore, right? And so you're going to change, and you're not always going down this convergent path together. I do believe some couples grow together and they continue to grow together and they're just always on the same page. But the chance of that is quite scarce and very rare for that to be successful.
Yeah, and and there are a lot of couples who have tried this where they get, and this is written about in the book, and it's actually when it was mentioned, I was like, oh my god, this is like, holy crap! Like, there could be a whole business behind um, getting people to buy into the whole monogamy thing. And where it came from is like, do you know how much money is made off of like forcing married people to stay together? Like, how many books and and stuff that are sold? It's like,
Yeah.
has your marriage lost the spark? Are you two no longer interested in each other? Well, if you buy this book and invest in our program, we can reignite the spark that's been missing in your marriage for so many years. So like, it's like they know this shit is going to happen and they make money off of this stuff. It's just like, oh,
Yeah.
are you miserable in your marriage? Here, why don't you buy some therapy sessions? Miserable in your marriage, buy this book, and so we can help you reignite. So it's just like they make money off the fact that these two poor souls are obviously miserable. They're missing something that they're not getting from each other. Yet they're just making money off these poor people by forcing them to just try and find it with each other. And
Yeah,
like,
I
it's
think,
like the fact that you're growing apart is bad. Like, there's something wrong with you, and we're here to help fix you. And
yeah.
these poor people, they're so easily exploited. And so when they told me that, this whole idea of monogamy is being made into a business, I was like, that's pretty messed up.
Yeah, I think pretty much all that work is being done by Dr. Phil and the like. You see so many of his books, The Marriage Solution. He has like tons and tons of books about this stuff. And I don't know, I keep hearing that he's not actually a psychologist or something, but I don't know if that's true. I heard he has like a degree in like geology. I for sure just made that up, but whatever. That'd be hilarious. But anyways, and he's, doing actual counseling and things, but and writing books on the matter. But anyways, I get what you're saying. I just want to throw in here too, if anyone's watching and they want to ask Immortal some questions in the YouTube live chat, feel free to interact, and I'll be monitoring that too, because I can multitask like that. So but if you're comfortable talking a little more about your decision to not have kids, outside of the relationship thing, what was it about that appealed to you?
Oh, just a life of freedom, really. It's I mean, and it's there are dual reasons really. My first one, like the first conclusion I came to was a child-free one, meaning it was like it was a lifestyle I wanted. So I didn't really see any I had no moral convictions about the whole issue as I developed later on, which is what antinatalism is. But at first it was the child-free thought. I was just like, I don't want to have kids because I like my life right now. I like the fact that I can sleep in and go to bed when I want and do this and do the shit that I want. I can pretty much have any job that I want because honestly, kids are expensive. And to be clear, if I had, because the money I make as a teacher, for just me as my own man, I feel rich. But
Yeah,
if I try to add a wife and kids into the mix, I actually wouldn't be able to continue teaching.
yeah,
I wouldn't be making enough money.
yeah.
And
That makes sense.
what was really messed up is with my previous ex, I told her that. I was like, look, I want to teach. And if you want 3 kids and to be a stay-at-home mom, I can't provide that for you as a teacher. And then
Yeah.
she like straight face told me, he's like, well, then you're gonna have to find something else to do.
Oh, yeah.
I was like, what? What the like I had to like I almost wanted to like punch myself in the head to make sure it wasn't like a dream or something. I was like, did you just say this? Like, did you really just tell me that?
Oh, that's
And so
awful.
yeah, so I was like, no, screw that.
Yeah, because I feel like some people's philosophy is really like, they know what they want to do, and even if it's not a high-paying job, they want to do it. But some people think that they have to sacrifice absolutely everything in order to cater to other people. And I think there's a difference between, selflessness in a way that you're still honoring yourself and then just being friggin' miserable and just getting by. I mean, I think people go like, oh, if you won't have kids, you won't do this. You're not selfless. You're self-absorbed. Well, you know what? I don't think so. I think it's a personal choice. And for people to frown on people that choose to not have children or know that they'll be happier in this lifestyle, it's a lot better than having kids because you feel the pressure to do so and then just not being a good father or mother or feeling, compromised all the time and not being happy with your choice.
Well, I think there's a phrase that sums it up beautifully that it's better to not have kids and regret it than to have kids and regret it. Because at least if you don't have them and you're regretful, then the regret dies with you. But if you create a new life and you regret it, then both that new life and yourself will suffer that pain because
Right.
you'll be sad that you made it, and that person will also feel that regret that you have, and then they'll feel ashamed too. So
Yeah.
why not? So just it's better. I mean, it kind of sucks if someone is deprived of something they want, but at the end of the day, it's just if you're not sure that you should do it, you probably shouldn't, because if you wind up regretting it later on, it's I can't imagine anything more tragic than that.
Yeah, I can agree with that. We also have a couple questions here. One's a pretty deep question. Someone asks, what do you think of the Buddhist concept of no self? What is a personality? Oh man, that's deep.
Oh God, I don't think I'm that smart.
I was reading it too. I'm like, to read or not to read? That's a good question, but
Yeah,
that's
well,
really.
wait, so I probably need to watch the video that's attached to that then.
Oh no, that was actually just the thing I
Oh, you're
posted
right. You're
before.
right. You
Yeah, the
said that
YouTube.
earlier. No, you're right.
That's
Okay.
okay. If you want to pass, it's cool. Or if they want to clarify what they mean a little bit, because I'm not too familiar with that. But I guess it goes into philosophy and personal beliefs, and even going down to like the root of things here, right? Of no self. Yeah, like kind of like breaking it all down to like an even deeper level, which is whew, that's tough.
I haven't studied Buddhism, so I'd rather not try and comment intelligently about a subject that I'm not intelligent on because that's a disservice to the person.
Okay,
So
fair.
so once I've studied it, I might be able to answer, but I have no answer for that question. What's the second one that I'm looking at?
Right. So basically, someone's asking you, how do you feel towards people? I guess they give ultimatums like, then if you don't marry me by tomorrow, I'm leaving you, or like I'm leaving because it's not fun anymore. Like, how do you feel about people? I guess kind of give those threats. Like you are kind of in that situation. How does that make you feel?
Well, don't kowtow to them. Okay, like you don't need to counter it with an ultimatum of your own, where it's just like you give me one more ultimatum and I'm done with you. Like
Oh yeah.
you don't need to. don't become, you don't need to turn into the person that is acting abusively. But all you have to do is just calmly just shrug it off and be like, oh, I'm giving you this ultimatum. Like, okay, well, I'm not playing this game. I'm not playing this game with you. Like if you could just calmly say, look, I understand this ultimatum, but I'm not giving you this. So what are you going to do? Because you know what you're going to do. And if that other person wants to throw a fit, like, all right, then you can go throw a fit somewhere else. But I'm not going to get upset over this. And so, yeah, I would tell it, like, don't play the game of abuse. If someone's giving you ultimatums, that's not healthy. And no, I mean, I remember being asked one time by my ex that if she asked me to pick between my parents and her, if it was a life or death situation, she asked me, who would you save?
Oh,
and I refused to answer the question. I was like, this is an absurd question. I'm not answering this. Right. And then she was like, oh, so that means by you not answering, that means you love your parents more than you love me. I was just like, are you in college or are you a 5-year-old girl? What's going on?
Yeah, it's crazy how people can degrade to that level of just, getting these little elementary school fights almost, two grown adults screaming, throwing things at each other and just, bringing out I find when you're in a relationship where you're literally bringing out the worst in each other, it's time to go. That just, you should help each other grow to a certain extent. There should be some value in your relationship. It has to be, I think, selfish in the extent where you're actually benefiting from the other person and they're bringing something good to your life. That doesn't necessarily mean them doing things for you or, catering to your needs, but just to be a healthy and happy presence in your life. Let's say you're trying to reach common goals like lifestyle goals or want to achieve career goals together. You can help each other move forwards without degrading into just, these little fights and things like that. I find that quite sad to see.
Yeah, well, I just to answer that person's question, like, don't play those games. These ultimatums, if they're ever delivered to you, don't even answer them. I would just laugh them off just because of how absurd they are. And they're like, what's one of them? Then if you don't marry me by tomorrow, I'm leaving you. Then just be like, all right, well, just tell them like, hey, then do whatever it is you feel you need to do.
Yeah, I think that's a good idea.
I would just tell the person to stay calm in the face of irrational questions like that, because if you respond irrationally and angrily, then you're wasting your own energy in this. So I would and it would throw the person off, honestly, if you like stay calm and you're just like, look, like, what do you need from me? And that would actually cause them to hesitate. But in those instances, always stay calm. And it really helps to, if you don't know what you want, you can actually really fall prey to ultimatums like that. But if you're comfortable with who you are and what you want, then these ultimatums mean precisely nothing. Like if you know you want to get married, if you know you don't want to get married, and someone's like, marry me, or it's like, marry me or else, you can just laugh at that. But like, look, I told you I'm not going to do this. So if this is something you want, go get it. But you're not getting it from me.
Exactly.
You're not stressed anymore.
Yeah, I think that's really a big mistake when people go into a relationship and they expect the person to kind of conform to all their needs and to compromise themselves to the point where they're just completely, let's say in the case of a male, emasculated or just a servant, right? That's, unless that's the role to play for that day. But I mean, in a relationship in general, you don't want that person to feel so compromised that they just lose themselves. I've seen so many couples where they're just kind of fused into one person, and that's not an attractive thing at all. It's basically like one person answers for the other, and they're just one unit. And I always said I want to be an individual in my relationship. I don't want to be like, oh yeah, you're that person who's dating that person, or you're Mrs. Whoever. I want to be my own individual with my own interests. You don't want to have the same everything with one person, or else it just gets boring.
Yeah. Well, I was gonna make a funny comment where I saw what you were getting at. You made a very sly comment where you're just like, unless that's the role he wants to play. I was like, Lisa, I am polluting your mind already. I can tell. You were crossing into the dark side.
I'll be like, honey, tonight. I'll be like, hey, want to try something different?
Yeah. Well,
I should not be saying this live on my channel. Okay, I'm composed. I am composed. So I'm actually really red, but I am still composed. What was I going to say? Oh yes, I wanted to ask you, how do you yourself handle jealousy, possessiveness? Have you ever been in a situation where you felt it's a very strong emotion for some people? Has it ever overtaken you to the point where it clouded your own judgment, or have you never been affected by it?
No, no, because I understand it's like the biggest delusion because people are free. And so the sooner you can liberate yourself from this idea that this person belongs to me and they're mine and like this territorial Neanderthal BS where it's just like thumping your chest like this is my woman. Like no, she's not, because when she gets fed up with you, she's going to leave whenever the hell she wants, regardless of if you have it down on paper in the form of a marriage license, whether you're just articulating the fact that, oh, she is my woman or my girlfriend or whatever. It's like, she's going to leave if she gets sick of you, dude. The sooner you can embrace that reality, then don't worry about it. I mean, that's why I don't let myself be jealous or possessive, because it's completely unhealthy, because it's the person, when the person's happy, they're going to stay. When they're no longer want to be with you, they're going to leave.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
the sooner you can just wake up to the fact that, okay, I'm going to enjoy this day by day and enjoy the fact that they're here with me right now. We're happy. But if she ever gets unsatisfied or no longer likes what we're doing, she's going to go. And there's no amount of me stamping my feet and throwing a fit and calling her names is going to reverse that. When she's decided, look, it's been fun, but I'm gone, she's gone.
Yeah. Yeah,
And
it's true.
I just, it doesn't bother me because it's my belief that human beings are promiscuous anyway. So I almost anticipate the day where it's just like, look, it's been fun for about 3 to 7 years, but it's like I'm kind of bored and want to do something else. And so the fact that I believe that's how humans are, it doesn't really shock me when it happens.
Yeah, I love that though. 3 to 7 years, but it's true. It's
Well,
true.
there's actually, I think they clarified that it's not just a random three. I think they said that the moment, if you start living with a person and you see them every day, then you'll actually, then that itch, as you described, will come sooner. It'll come much sooner. If you're like with the person every day, you see them every day and you're like having sex with them that frequently, then it comes a little sooner. But like if, like, say someone's in a relationship where they like live apart for some time and then they like hang out on the weekends and then they separate for the week and then they see each other again on the weekends, that those gaps of time that they take actually, like, the whole absence makes the heart grow fonder thing, that actually does happen.
Yes.
That actually does work. So people can kind of delay that, oh my gosh, I'm kind of getting bored with the other person, because they're not seeing each other all the time. But it seems to be when people are with each other all the freaking time, that boredom seems to strike a lot quicker than if they didn't see each other all the time.
Yeah, that's interesting. I see how that makes sense. Some people are just also glued at the hip every spare moment. They don't go out, they don't see friends, they don't go and do separate things. They're always just together, and that can really weigh on the relationship over time, I think.
Yeah, that's just my take on it. You like you're saying, you wisely have said that you're your own person with your own friends, your own hobbies, and you need to be free to pursue those. And if that means like, hey, look, I'm not staying home tonight. I need to get out. I need to get out with other girls or other guys and just go party the night away. You need to have a partner. It's just like, you know what? Like, go have fun, because your happiness and your joy, like whatever makes you happy and joyful is what makes me happy and joyful. So you need to pursue what makes you happy, because if you're not happy, I'm not going to be happy. But if you're happy and fulfilled, I'm going to be satisfied. And if you're, and it sounds like you are, if you're in a relationship like that, only good can come from that.
Yeah, I agree. And you never want to put your eggs all in one basket, because if you do and you just put everything into a relationship and all your happiness is derived from that person and everything comes down to that person, when they do leave you, because you're putting way too much emphasis on their part in the relationship, you're going to be devastated. You're going to feel like someone just died. It's like I've seen that happen so many times. And I've been in relationships like that where I just put every single bit of my focus into it. And guess what? It blows up in your face. Or you're so intense that you lose focus yourself, right? You lose the interest. You put everything in and you go after a while, I've kind of lost the interest in this because you've just been focused on it for way too long and you forgot about yourself. So it can definitely work. I think it's not just a gender thing. I think males can do it, females can do it. You get too possessive, too controlling, too interested in the person, almost obsessive. And that is never going to end well. But if you take your own space, you have your distinct careers, you do your own thing. Like, I'm just going to throw it out there. To me, when people live together, they're married, and they have the same career together and they work together all day, I don't know. I guess it can work for some people, but to me, that sounds like a little too much time together. You know what I mean?
No, yeah, you gotta get away, and it's I mean, as communal a species as we are, is what humans are. Solitude is necessary and it is healthy. Now, complete solitude in which you have no human interaction will make a person nuts. I mean, I firmly believe that someone will go insane if they have no human interaction.
Yep.
But I think too much time with one person and one person only will also make you nuts.
Yeah, that's a good perspective. It's true. Yeah, either you're gonna get cabin fever or you're gonna get like sick of someone else. So it's not you need variety. And it was really cool actually because a woman was speaking to me yesterday and she said, you know, because we always say everything in moderation, and then she had this quote that's even moderation in moderation. So sometimes you have to just let loose and go crazy and just not care about things and just do your own thing, you know, and just I mean, within some limits, I'm hoping, but you know what I mean? Like, but you know, go out and party and don't worry about what you're eating or following certain goals all the time, and just have a good time. That's part of life too. You got a little bit of everything, right?
Well, and I think for before I forget, it's something where you're saying like kind of you need some variety and some spice in your life. You can't just, and so like imagine, because you say people change, right?
Yeah.
And so let's say two people are together and they've enjoyed like normal, relatively vanilla sexual encounters, okay? And that was satisfying. And let's say one day one of these people decides they stumble upon this 50 Shades book, and all of a sudden they're reading through it and they're like, oh my God, oh whoa, I find this appealing. I think I might want to try this, right? And so something they'd never considered before. Like let's say before they picked up that darn book, they were just happy with missionary or whatever, okay? And then they read that book, like, oh my gosh, I think I want to throw some leather handcuffs in the mix, okay? And so they go back to their partner and they say, you know, I was reading this in this book and it kind of turns me on. Can we try this? And the other partner is just like, are you kidding me? That's like weird and disgusting. Like, you know, just don't ever ask me about that again.
Right.
Okay, like, now, is it healthy? Okay, like, so what's that person left with? The fact that this is something that he or she genuinely wants to do, and because their partner said no, they're supposed to deprive themselves of that joy that they're seeking. Like, that's it. You see how unfair this is? I think that's why people can benefit from the fact that they have a primary relationship, but they should be able to go to their partner and say, like, look, I'm changing and I want to try this, and I understand that you really don't want to do this, and I'm not going to make you do it, but don't look at me and tell me that because you don't want to do it, that I no longer am allowed to do this. Like that to me just sounds completely unfair. And I think if people can be mature enough to say, look, I may not be able to do that for you. So if you need to go to like some play party or something just to get this out of your system for like one night, like they should be free to go do that and still be able to come back to their spouse the end of the night because they're the person that they love. And all they just need to say is like, look, I just need to get this out of my system and just do it, you know? But at the end of the day, like, I still want to come home to you. I don't want to be with the person I just scratched that itch with. I still want to be with you and you only. And I think it'd be beneficial for people if they're like, look, if you come home to me at the end of the night or the end of the day, I don't care. But if every once in a while you just come across something, you're like, I just need to do this just to, you know, get it out of my system. I don't see why people need to throw a fit and be like, you know, like, well, if I can't give it to you, then you can't have it. That seems very, very unfair for people to talk like that.
Yeah, that's an interesting perspective, because I feel like in some of those relationships, the person would go like turn the person down, and then the other person gets really hurt, and then the initial person goes, okay, I'll try it or whatever, and they're just not happy, and they're just doing it so the person will stay with them, right? And it's just like, you know, it lessens the experience for the person. So
well, and to be honest, I think the person's just going to go off and do it anyway. After, if like they're told no enough and this person really wants to do it, like, you honestly think they're just going to sit there like, oh, because so-and-so said I couldn't, I guess I won't. Like, people aren't going to be like that. You know, it's kind of like, I don't know what it is. I just see it in my high school students. Like when they're told they can't do something, it just makes them want to do it that much more, you know?
Yes,
So
yes.
I have a feeling when people are just told like, no, you cannot do this. You cannot do this. I forbid you from doing this. They're going to be like, well, damn it, just to spite you, I'm going to go do it, you know? So
Exactly. Yeah, that is very true, like classic rebellious behavior, so to say. I mean, it's labeled as rebellious, but it's really a normal reaction to
yeah,
these kind of
and
things.
I don't think adults are immune from it. I mean, because
No.
you've seen adults have childish spats. I mean, like I think that kid in us will it's in some instances will always be 5 years old. Will always be a toddler that throws a fit. You know,
Yeah,
it's
and what's interesting is my fiance like laid down the rules one day because I at one point I don't even remember what it was, but it was in the beginning of a relationship. I've known him for 4 years now, and I said something like, I really wish you wouldn't do this, and he said something like, you saying that just makes me want to do it more. And then it clicked into my mind. I said, oh my gosh. And it's really interesting how humans have this extremely strong, powerful, false sense of control over things. They think if I tell them not to do this, they will listen to me and they would never lie to me about things and they're just going to abide to what I say because I'm the center of the universe, right? And then and then the person can lie about it or they're going to do it anyways. And it's like, you can't control anybody. You really can. You can only control yourself. And even then, sometimes you can't, I think. It's funny because we even think we have all this power over ourselves, but emotions can be very powerful and feelings can be very powerful.
and
So,
and I think what makes people mad, say when cheating happens,
yeah.
not the act that they're mad about. I think what they're upset about is the fact, like what you just said, they had this illusion of control, and the fact that it was just shattered. I think that's what they're upset. They're not upset about that you wouldn't had sex, that the person had sex with somebody else. They're upset with the fact that their illusion of being able to control somebody has just come crashing down,
Yes,
and
yes.
that can be a really traumatic wake up call. Like now you have just come to the realization that you do not control anybody. Oh, and I think that's why people go into rage mode when cheating happens. It's not the fact that I'm upset that you slept with somebody. It's the fact that they're upset that a delusion of theirs has been destroyed.
Yes, exactly. And it's interesting because it always comes back down to the self, of course, how things impact yourself, because we are all, selfish to some extent, and we want to preserve what we think is valuable to us. So I completely agree with that.
Yeah, yeah. Well, it's like I think you explained earlier why some people behave. It's just it's a harmful, unhealthy way of coping with something. And so, like you're saying, coping with the loss of control, that can be an unhealthy response to that. So, yeah.
Exactly. That's really cool. I want to ask if anyone has any questions for Immortal. Now's the time to throw any last questions about anything we talked about or anything else. Just just any questions. And I think we'll wrap it up soon. We've been going for about an hour now, so I'm just going to wait a bit and see if anyone has any questions for you too. But it's really cool to get this perspective for you because I've been wanting to do more interviews that don't just revolve around mental health only, but different issues and different things and how people choose to lead their lives, because that comes down to learning about other people and seeing that our own the way we choose to run our own lives, it's not everyone's going to agree with us, and we're going to have all different kinds of perspectives and things that work for different people. So it's very interesting.
Well, and I think it shatters the whole, and one thing that I've learned from interacting in this community and in I think it's really the fetish BDSM community that taught me this more powerfully than anything else, that no one is the same.
Right.
Okay. I mean, generalizations exist, but no one is exactly the same as somebody else. It's impossible. I mean, the stuff that I've seen that people do, it's mind blowing. And but it's wonderful. It's wonderful how you think you're the only weirdo in the world, and you're not. You're nowhere close. You're nowhere close to it. No one is. But it's with that in mind, you don't need to ever feel alienated, because whatever it is you're into and whatever it is you like, I guarantee you there is a community of people out there that exists that will embrace everything that you're about. You don't have to you don't have to change anything about your appearance, what you like, nothing. I guarantee you there's either a person or a community that will look at you the moment they see you and be like, you know what, you're welcome here. And people need to know that, and to not feel like feel that they need to alter anything about themselves in order to fit in. It's like, because I guarantee you there's a group out there for you,
Yeah.
and for just exactly the way you are. They will take you as you are. I
Yeah.
guarantee it.
And I think that actually parallels nicely with the mental health community, because a lot of people feel very alone if they're dealing with depression or anything, panic attacks or things that they think no one else could possibly feel the way I do. And I've spoken to so many people who have like read the depression checklist or anxiety, and they say, oh my God, I fit all these things, and I finally found people that, you know, understand me and they can relate to me. Like, I was talking to a girl at my work that deals with horrible OCD to the point where she's wearing gloves and all the time and all this, and she feels alone, but other people go through the same thing as her. So it's really interesting that if you think about how many people are on the planet, there's got to be like-minded individuals or people who have been through the same kinds of hardships as you. You're never completely alone, and I think that's a good message for anyone.
Yeah, you're not alone. You're not. No one is. And but
Exactly.
that's the thing, is that a lot of people don't bother to look, bother to do the investigating or the looking that it requires. And in order to find those people, they just kind of throw their hands up. They're like, well, I looked for like one day and I couldn't find anyone like me. So therefore there was no one out there like me. It's like, you got to look a little harder than that.
Exactly. It's that whole like special snowflake theory, you know, and it's like, I'm the only one who's out there like that. I'm special, damn it, honor me, you know, but it's like
Yeah.
there's other people that feel the same way as you or been through similar things. So never think that you're the only one in that boat. And someone's asking you, Immortal, what do you think about anti-MGTOWs? Random question, but why not?
I think about, well, who are the anti-MGTOWs, like feminists or whatever? Because yeah, of course, any group's going to have dissenters. I don't worry. I don't worry about them. I really don't. Whoever's asking, I don't worry about who's anti-MGTOW, because I mean, I'm just comfortable in my convictions that I'm not going to marry and I'm not going to, you know, have kids. So it doesn't matter who comes into my life, either on YouTube, on Google Plus, or in my actual life. And it's just like, let me plead the case on why you should get married and why you should have kids. I'm like, I'm not going to hear it. I'm like, okay, you can talk from sun up until sundown about why I should marry and have kids. And guess what? I'm just gonna be like, you just kind of wasted your breath. You can save your breath. It ain't going to work on me. So I don't worry about anyone who's anti-MGTOW or whatever, because it's just like, they're like, okay, you don't agree with this lifestyle or this philosophy. That's fine. This group isn't for you. Why don't you go back to the group you're a part of and
Yeah.
enjoy that community? You don't find our community agreeable. That's fine. Go back to your own.
Yeah, yeah. You know what? I agree with that. I think it's more important to put the focus on yourself than to worry about, you know, what everyone else is doing. I have sometimes people coming after me trying to change me on YouTube, trying to alter the way I think about things. I say, listen, I'm my own person. I'm happy with where I am at this point. Might my, you know, mind change about certain things in the future? It's possible. Anyone's adaptable, but for now, this is what I believe in, and this is the direction I'm going in. So focus on your own life, you know. And we have a couple more questions. I think this would be kind of cool to do a like question answers period if people want to keep asking questions.
Yeah.
Cool. There's quite a few coming in. So let's start with this one. Someone's asking, how can one deal with if one spouse's family gets involved in the partner's lives in the wrong direction? I mean, how can one cope with that?
Oh, so you mean like, parents trying to tell the couple what to do?
Probably. That's what I'm reading off of this too. Yeah.
Okay, yeah, that's what I think the question is. Well, it just, you know, okay, like, and I've noticed this, like, parents consider their kids to be like property almost, where it's just like, you're my property, and you do as I say, right? Like, you're my kid and you're supposed to do everything that I tell you. And no, I don't go with that at all. Like, you're your own person, and at the end of the day, if they're a negative, toxic influence, like, you don't cut them out of your life. You don't cut them off, because that's you know, they're your family. They have done stuff for you, but you just don't need to listen to that influence. You can just kind of smile and nod, be like, okay, I hear what you're saying. I hear what you're saying. I hear what you're saying. And then once the conversation's over and they're done kind of preaching at you, you just you don't take their advice. You just go back to how you were living. Like, okay, I heard
Yeah.
you.
Yeah.
I hear what you're saying, but at the end of the day, me and my partner are not going to do what you're saying. So you
Yes.
don't need to get stressed out about it. You really don't. It's like if my parents are like telling me and a woman that I'm in a TPE with, y'all are going to have kids, right? I'll be like, okay, just keep talking, keep talking, keep talking. And then at the end of the day, we're like, yeah, we're not having kids. And we'll just laugh about it and just go about what we were doing before. You don't need to let it bother you.
Yes, yes, I can relate to that too because my fiance's family is very like traditionalist and they're Greek and they have very strong, distinct values about things. And one time one of them complained to me like, "Why didn't you like make dinner for your fiance?" And I said, "Because I have my own agenda, and he's a capable adult, and I was doing my own things, and I'm not going to let anyone tell me what to do." And I do help him out a lot. We both have a very mutual relationship where we help each other, but sometimes one of us has to put ourselves first and do something to if we're out of the house at the time or we're doing something to take care of ourselves. Parents should not come in and tell us how to run a relationship. And actually the statement was started with, "This is probably none of my business, but," and if someone starts that kind of conversation, that it's not even worth it, right? So
yeah, exactly. Yeah, it's like the question you're asking is BS.
yeah, exactly. As soon as he said that's how the question started, I said, okay, then how about we forget that and we just kind of go about our relationship the way that we want? Because do you want to be exactly like your parents or my parents? No, then let's just make our own path. So the
Yes.
next question for you is very random, but I like it. Do you believe in ghosts?
I believe in the paranormal. I have
Cool.
a lot of friends who I have a lot of respect for, including my best friend who was the one who took me in to prevent me from being homeless. He has, and I think this is he's a man of integrity in that he doesn't make this crap up, but he has had some stories about seeing things, people who have died he has seen, and stuff that he can't explain, and neither can I when I hear them. And honestly, I want to believe that there is a higher dimensional life waiting for us after this one. I really want to believe that. That's a really pleasant thought. That when we that when our time to die comes here, that blackness isn't all that waits for us. And to be quite clear, I actually hope it's not reincarnation because I mean, no offense, but I don't know about you, but once this life's done, I don't want to do it all over again. If I want to live a life, I want it to be like infinitely better than this crap. So I really don't want to do this all over again. But so anyway, that's just I totally acknowledge the existence of paranormal phenomenon, and if that includes ghosts, it includes ghosts. People have different names for them, but yeah, I don't deny that that's real. I truly believe it is real, like you're saying.
Very cool. That's actually a good answer. I wasn't sure if you're gonna like laugh at the question or if you're gonna get into it, but you got into it, so that was interesting.
No,
Um,
I've investigated a lot of stuff. So most people, if someone has a question on something, I probably have researched it.
awesome. So here's another question for you. This is cool. What are Immortal's views on polyamorous parents?
Okay, well, if honestly, we're kind of getting to a point where if like homosexual parenting is, really that's not, no one's really batting an eye at that anymore. We're coming to the age where homosexuality is starting to not be taboo anymore, and that includes homosexual parenting. And I think in a way, polyamorous parents will probably be viewed in the same way because that does happen. Just because I don't want to have kids and I am polyamorous, it doesn't mean that polyamorous people do not impregnate each other and make babies. They do. And for this guy, I'd also recommend that there's a bunch of documentaries on polyamorous families who have kids, and it'd be interesting to see like the story of how these people live their lives.
Yeah.
But in a sense, polyamorous parenting that has existed from time immemorial. A lot of the hunter-gatherer tribes, that's exactly how they were. Like a lot of these people, they didn't know who their kids were. In fact, I think a lot of these tribes, how they actually believed babies were made is the women actually believed that you constructed a baby from each individual man's seed. So what
Right.
she would do is she would sleep with every man in the tribe. So she would be like, okay, I'm going to sleep with the strong man, so my baby will be strong, and then I'm going to go over and sleep with the equivalent of the nerd guy who's smart. So it's like, so I'm going to sleep with the nerd, so my baby will be smart. I'm going to sleep with this other guy in order to get that trait. And so in these communities, nobody really knew who the parents were, but because of that, everyone was invested in the child because nobody knew if the kid was theirs. So they all had an equal stake in that child. Like all the men wanted to protect it, you know, and so it was actually kind of good that there was a communal raising of children at one point in hunter-gatherer tribes, and the hunter-gatherers that still exist, that's their model. They still do it the same way today. So you know, the fact, if anyone's like, well, that seems odd, like not really. Many human communities have done that throughout history, and a lot of them that exist today still do it that way.
Wow, can you imagine if that's how it actually worked? If you literally built like the DNA for your child out of multiple men's, like, can you imagine how different the world would be if science is like, actually, that's how that works? Like, imagine what kind of world we'd live in. Everyone would be polyamorous. That would be for
Yeah,
sure.
I think there'd be a lot more happy men, that's for sure.
But what would happen? It would get kind of messed up if there's this guy that was like, you know, the penultimate guy, right? And he's like has all the perfect traits. That guy would get a lot of action.
Yeah,
Like,
yeah, but
I'll just sleep with this guy. So
that's true, but that's rarely the case though, because I mean,
no, I
if
know.
someone tries to be a jack of all trades, they end up being a master of nothing. So
Yeah,
really,
yeah,
really, like the smartest man on earth is rarely ever an Olympic athlete. So
that's true.
you're really gonna find that all in the same person.
But I wonder, like, I don't want to play too much into this utopic society of sorts, but I'm wondering, like, you know, if there was a man that was very attractive, I mean, physical attractiveness is a big indicator of overall health. If someone has, you know, lustrous hair, clear skin, blah, 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 strength, they seem to be less, like, people avoid those that look sick just biologically. You know, if they look really healthy and really fit, they would probably want to procreate with that person over someone that doesn't look like they're doing too well, right? So it'd be very interesting how that would kind of that would go down in that society. But I'm sure, you know, some people would get phased out, evolution would go on, and I'm just kind of playing into this in my mind. I'm like, this is a very interesting idea.
Oh yeah, yeah, it is. It is. I mean, it's. I mean, I think scientists have thoroughly debunked that babies are not built from multiple men's sperm. But I mean, these tribes genuinely believe that, and it was kind of cool because because all these men were involved in the creation of this child. Then a lot of these men banded together, and they all had the mutual interest of this child, you know, all together. And in a sense, you know, they all had kind of a kinship with each other, and the fact that, hey, we're all kind of the father of this child. And so not only were they invested in the kid, but they kind of all formed a friendship with each other because
Yes,
they're
yeah.
so they're all like, yeah, we're kind of all in this together, so why not, we can all be friends in this, right? So
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense.
yeah.
And we have another question for you here. This is kind of cool. I might start doing my format like this where I do like an hour-long interview and then take half an hour for questions and just kind of like save the questions for the end. This is kind of a cool format. I like this better than like no one uses the Q&A thing on Google. No one even knows where to find it. So this is,
Yeah.
you know, live time. People are interacting, making stupid jokes with each other, having fun. So I
Right.
I was like, what was that? Why is 6 afraid of 7? Someone just wrote that. I'm like, because 7, 8, 9, like, come on.
That's true.
So it's kind of funny. It's just fun to see people having a good time and interacting. It's like a little party going on in there. But anyways, your next question here is, what is your advice for men who don't want to get married or have kids to cope with that for the rest of their lives? It's interesting that they wrote cope, right? Because it is a choice. So,
Yeah,
um,
well, is he saying that someone who wanted those things but didn't end up having them, and now he's miserable for the rest of his life?
right. I guess it really depends. With the word cope, I'm wondering too, because that's very like, you know, a way of saying that it's a bad thing, it
Yeah,
sounds.
yeah.
So,
Well, you know, okay. Well, I will answer this because you know, because for a lot of men, it seems like, well, I need to have kids in order to like ensure my immortality or my name lives on or like my bloodline gets passed on. I always have this joke for everyone who makes the bloodline argument. I was like, if you want to pass on your blood, go donate it. You'll probably make help a lot of lives better if you do that. So I
that's
was like,
a really good point, actually.
I was like, if you want to pass on your blood, go to a blood donation center and donate it. You'll actually save a life. But
Yeah, no, that's true.
well, and I also argue that if someone wants to leave a legacy, I look at, and these are people who had kids like Albert Einstein, Stephen Hawking, some of these brilliant men, Leonardo da Vinci or whatever. Some of the more brilliant historical figures, you know, I'm sure they all had kids, but guess what? I don't know who their progeny were, and I doubt most people on Earth know who the kids of those people were. And guess what? It doesn't matter, because what those men did as individuals, the feats that they achieved, is what allows them to be remembered forever. So I would
Yeah.
tell them. So I would tell a man, if your goal is to be remembered, then make your own mark in the world. Like don't take a problem that you're passionate about and pawn it off on somebody else. Like, what did Gandhi say? You be the change you wish to see in the world. So
Yeah.
if there's a problem that you want solved, then you need to have some responsibility in solving that problem and not pawning it off on somebody else because you're too lazy to want to go fix it.
Yeah.
Right. So, and really, those are the only people who get remembered, is the fact that there's a problem in my current time, and I'm going to be one of those few brave people who's going to want to step outside of the box and try and do something to solve it. And if you want to talk about immortalizing yourself in your name, I feel that is a far better strategy than just pumping out a bunch of kids.
Yeah, and can you imagine the pressure on those kids? It's like, hey, your dad was this great painter, this great whatever. What are you gonna do with your life? And they're like, oh crap. Like now I
Yeah,
have
like,
to
yeah,
do
can you
something.
imagine like Stephen Hawking's children? I can't imagine like the pressure goes, I mean, or like Albert Einstein's kids. I mean, even
Oh,
Gandhi's children. I mean, no one really knows their names, but everyone knows Mahatma Gandhi. I mean, like his name will probably be remembered for centuries. So, but same with Martin Luther King. He had a bunch of kids, but who talks about them? Nobody. But Martin Luther King, he sure as heck is at the forefront of every discussion because of what he did.
yep.
I would say that probably the other issue is where people will be afraid of a life without kids is the loneliness. They're like, well, if I just have a wife or a long-term partner and she dies, I'm going to be all by myself. And to that, this may be an oversimplification of an answer. Is like, well, okay, well, you could always get another partner if you're lonely, or you could. For me, it's if you try and stay, and I think we already covered this. If you try and like you're saying, put all your eggs in one basket, if you're dependent on just any one thing for your source of joy or for what I would call your source of narcissistic supply, if you're putting all of that into just one person, then yeah, like when you lose that one thing, you're not going to know what to do. But
Yeah.
if you're the creative type where you have all kinds of sources of joy spread out in multiple areas, yeah, you're going to be sad when you lose that one thing, but you're going to have so many more things to find joy in. Like, say for instance, if you have a good circle of friends, if your partner dies, you can say like, don't you have friends? Like you have friends there in your life that's still going to put an arm around your shoulder and be like, hey man, we're sorry this happened to you, but hey, we're here for you. We're still around. You still have friends. Or say people can get involved in, like, say, because it almost sounds like this would be things that take place later in life. So let's say the person's retired, they could start getting involved in some sort of volunteer work where they busy
Yeah.
themselves with the volunteer work that they do that makes a difference in people's lives. They can have their friends, they can have a pet if they need to kind of fill that void of loneliness. And I think the phrase I hear the most is like, you don't want to die alone, do you? Well,
Yeah.
as far as I can tell, I mean, this may sound morbid, but that's kind of the fate that awaits every person. Like, I think it's a romanticized movie version that makes people think like, I'm going to have my family all around my bed as I'm dying.
Like the notebook kind of
Yeah, it's like,
feeling.
yeah, like my spouse and I are going to die together at exactly the same time.
Exactly.
Like,
Spoiler alert, sorry.
yeah, sorry, yeah, for anyone who hasn't seen the Notebook, I'd be floored if they haven't, but
Yeah.
um, Jesus, but yeah, it's like I think George Clooney said it best. One of his characters in a movie, he was just like, look, he's like, when I was when my parents were a certain age, we ended up moving them into a nursing facility, and it's just, and I think he says like, and so and so's parents also went the same way, and he finished it with, make no mistake, we all die alone. And
Yeah.
I actually saw, what I see is that these people are like, okay, my kids are going to take good care of me when I'm older. I have not seen that at all. In fact, when I was, when you're in college, you work all kinds of odd jobs. Like
Yes.
my odd job in college was a mover. I actually got to move people out of homes and stuff. And what I saw was middle-aged kids and their elderly parents, right? And I have to tell you, these middle-aged kids were so mean to their elderly parents. I can't even tell you how many times I wanted to call them out. Like I almost was like so mad at some of the things I saw. I was almost like, I will be fired. Is like if I have to because I need to say something. But like
Wow.
these like elderly folks, they're like wanting to hold on to their home, but there's kids like it's like we can't have you live in your house because we're tired of having to come by and like take care of you and check on you. They want to take their parent and just toss them in a home and say like we want it to be someone else's responsibility. We don't want to have to care because we have our own family and you're just too much of a burden. Like I'm so busy over here. I don't want to have to deal with you. I want to drop you off in some home and let some nurse freaking deal with you.
Exactly. You know what? It's kind of nice. Like this, I will say, I really give a nod to, and like, my fiance's family, and I think for many Greeks and those similar kind of cultures, the grandfather is not doing well, and he lives on his own. But people go by, visit him a lot. Sometimes he actually comes and lives with the family, and they take care of him and help him out and everything. And I think that is a very beautiful part of those kind of traditions where they make that effort for the family and they really put family first in a lot of ways.
Yeah, well, that's what I'm saying. It's just from my personal experience, but from what I saw, it just a lot is like my kids exist to take care of me when I'm older. I'm like, I haven't seen a lot of that. So
Yes,
if that's what you're expecting, don't hold your breath.
exactly. And I think another thing that's true is you can only ask, you cannot expect, which is sadly how the world works. People think you will do this for me, and it's that control thing, back to the control illusion. And it's like you will do this because I did this for you. Well, that's not how the world works. Not everyone is altruistic, and a lot of people are just self-serving. There's another question for you here too. What is your advice for any couples in the world, in particular young couples? Interesting.
Don't get married, don't have kids.
Immortal. Oh boy.
Okay, well,
I picture people like crying behind their like computer screens now. Like he's so harsh. He's so harsh.
I know, yeah. It's like my dream has been shattered. No, but I mean I'm biased. Honestly, I mean I really though I will say I genuinely believe that not getting the state involved in your romance is key, I think, to happiness. And I really think that not having kids also allows the two partners to focus on each other without any distractions, and they can really make each other a priority. Because what I see, and this is just what I've seen, okay, and it kind of makes sense because honestly the kids didn't ask to be born, so honestly they do deserve to kind of be put front and center because they didn't ask to exist. And so if now that they exist, it's kind of wrong for a parent to like kind of treat them callously. I'm like, yeah, you exist, but I'm not really going to give you the time of day. Then I'd ask, like, why did you have the kid in the first place if you're not even going to give it the time of day?
Exactly.
So I would have to say that really, that's kind of a consequence, unfortunately, I think, of people who have a kid, that their partner really is going to kind of become a second class citizen in that arrangement for the sake of the kid. And just for me, I don't know why I'd want to do that. I would just want to say like, look, it's just the two of us. And if it's just the two of us without any distractions, we can really, because, there's going to come a point like, because lurking beneath the surface is a little polyamorous promiscuity in all of us. And so it's like, to really, if we're going to play monogamy and keep that at bay, we really need to be focused on meeting each other's needs. And it just seems to me that if you add too many distractions into that, you're not going to be giving your partner the time of day that they deserve in order to make
Yeah.
sure that their needs are met. So that's why I say the no kids thing is because if you're making a vow to your partner to give them your very best for the rest of your life, you really need to ensure that you're in a position to actually carry that out, where you actually mean what you say. Like, you are my number one priority. And it's like, okay, you need to make sure you're in a position where you can actually make good on what you vowed. So,
Yes.
and just also, I think any other advice I would say, like, you need to be sexually compatible. Okay, like, cause let's be honest, like the one thing that makes a relationship different from a friendship is the fact that there is a whole lot of sex going on. Like, come on, let's be honest, all right? Like that's why we have a friend and we have a girlfriend. We are doing
Right.
something with one, we are not doing with the other. So
Hopefully.
one thing you need to be is you need to know what you like sexually. Okay, you need to like know. Absolutely, you need to have explored this thoroughly. You need to know what turns you on sexually, and you also need to know what the other person likes sexually, because if you're not compatible on that level, it's just not going to work.
Right.
It really isn't. It really, and like we talked about, if you're incompatible on that level, let's be honest, the other person, if their other partner is not giving them the type of sex that they're looking for, they will get it somewhere else. Like let's like get real. Seriously, if someone's just like, look, I want to tie you up and spank you, and the other person's like, hell no, I ain't doing that for you, like he will find somebody to tie up and spank. Okay, it's going to happen. So
Right.
you might as well make sure that you're compatible on that level, and if he's kinky and you're not, just be like, okay, it was worth a try, but it didn't work. So that's another thing that they need to ensure that they have that sexual compatibility. And that's one thing that it's going to be hard to establish that, because you need to be brave, because when you first meet somebody, they're still kind of a stranger. And so
Yeah.
really it's like you're having to divulge a very, very sensitive side of yourself to really someone who's still kind of a stranger. And so you have to be brave in order to do that.
Yeah.
But I think it's a brave step worth taking, so that the two people don't end up wasting time. Because if you're not being honest with each other for 6 months, and all of a sudden the truth comes out, because it will eventually. If the truth comes out that you have some really wild tastes that you want to do with this person, it's going to be a real shame if you like waited 6 months in order to divulge that information, only to find out that the person's like, well, I don't want to do that. And
Yeah.
it's like, oh my God, where did 6 months of my life just go?
Exactly, exactly. And I think you really have to have that attraction to the person and the trust with the person that is earned over time. That's something I believe for a long time now, that trust is earned and you have to build that with someone. It doesn't just come naturally. So you have to make sure you're compatible and you feel a certain element of trust towards that person to really help your relationship along.
Yeah, and that's one thing I'll say. Like, for instance, you have to kind of you have to establish the fact that you're attracted to somebody. I definitely wouldn't recommend being so honest, like on the first date, and be like, hi, I'm me. I want to tie you up and spank you.
Well, you never know. You might meet your soulmate that way. They're like, oh my God, me too.
Yeah, that is true. But like, some people that I will say that a lot of people that I've ended up playing with, they actually didn't know that they liked that.
Yeah, yeah,
They didn't know, and so if I had just blurted that out, they would have panicked. They would have, because they had never considered that before. But because I built a rapport with them first, and they're like, "Hey, I like this guy," and because you're more receptive to somebody you're attracted to. Then that's kind of when you spill the beans. Like, okay, she's attracted to me. This may be the proper time in order to say, "Hey, since I know you like me anyway, how about trying this?" And then they'll
right.
be like, huh. Because I can't even tell you where they've told me, like, I've never heard of that, but sounds hot, and I'm like, yes.
You're like score one for Immortal.
I was like, thank God it wasn't the other answer where it's just like, get the fuck away from me, because I've had that too.
Oh no, have you? You've been in that other side of things where people are scared of the whole concept, I'm sure.
Yeah, my first ever girlfriend who I tried to share that with panicked, freaked out on me. So, yep.
Oh,
Yep. So, but but I think I learned to, because that's where later on I was able to specify, like through online community. So I was able to like deliberately meet people who I knew were like pseudo interested. Like, say I talked to somebody online and I'd like have it written in a profile or something like that. And then they'd say like, hey, I was reading and then I read this. What does like, it's like, you're all good until this. What
oh
does this mean? It's
no.
like, what does this mean? No, actually, it turned out to have a happy ending, because these are the kind of people that had never heard what I had to say. And
Right,
so like,
right.
I've never heard of this before, but it sounds interesting. Can you like tell me more about that? And then I tell them about it, and they're like, that's something I think I could try. And then you end up trying it. So
Okay. So
yeah.
you open some people's minds. It's not just that they say like about this part, just remove that and we're good. Like they actually want to learn about what you meant by it.
Well, and you know what, and like a funny way that I think is easy, because I think people should use 50 Shades of Gray to their advantage. Because if you say that, most everybody knows what that means. So
Yeah.
instead of having to use any uncomfortable words, like do you want to do bondage play? Do you want to do like this kind of play? If someone's just like, so what are you into? It's just like, you could just use the subtle remark. It's like, frankly, I'm 50 Shades of fucked up, and you throw a wink in there, and then the person can be like, oh, okay, I know what that means.
Yeah,
So
it's funny how that's become so mainstream now. Now people understand it. It's just funny because some people reacted to the books or the movies like, oh my God, what is this? This is like a new concept. And for some people, it's been like a lifestyle choice for years, right? So it's interesting how some people are just so shocked by it. And it's like, it's nothing new. It's just being brought into the spotlight a bit more, right?
yeah, it's going mainstream, and I think that's good. I think that's good because I think in America people are so freaking sexually repressed. It's not even funny. It's not healthy. It's not healthy. There are oh my gosh. I think one friend of mine told me about he had always wanted to experience a threesome, but guess who he finally experienced his first threesome with?
Who?
A Southern Baptist minister and his wife.
What?
Yes,
I was like
yes.
trying to think of the possibilities here, and
I know, no,
you
but
blew my
like
mind still.
exactly, like see, like there is a freak in everybody,
Yeah.
everybody. I mean, and it's probably the most unassuming person. Like can you imagine like anyone watching it? I'm like, now they're all gonna be suspicious of their pastor.
Yeah, probably. I mean, I think there's already suspicion in some cases, but
Yeah.
you hear things. But all to say that, I mean, your profession or how you choose to conduct yourself is not always, what it is. People, I find, judge others way too superficially, and they see a person and they think like, oh, you're this way, and they just assume that based on your physical appearance or what you do, right? And like that happens to me all the time. They're like, oh, you're this little blonde chick, you must listen to Britney Spears and stuff. I'm like, I actually listen to metal. And they're like, what? And I'm like, yeah,
What?
you know?
Yeah.
And, I do scuba diving and I do this. And then I just like, it's fine to kind of blow the stereotypes sometimes. And people just seem so confused. And you say, well, looks aren't everything. And they're not, they don't govern how you're going to be in life, right? You don't have to fit into a little box just based on the way you look or what you choose for your career, for instance, right?
Oh my God, yeah, because everyone's like, they're like, Immortal, you seem like such a nice guy. And then I'm like, yeah, but I listen to like heavy metal and I bind and gag women for a living. What do you like? They're like, what? Like they don't suspect it. They don't suspect it at all.
Exactly.
It's great though. I love that reaction where they're just like, no, that's not true. I'm like, oh, it is. It is very true.
Yeah, that's really funny. I mean, that's a huge problem, I think, when people just assume these things about you, and if you want to look a certain way, and they think you're a certain way when you're really not. It's
Oh, I will say this. Like when you're talking about what you do for a living, kind of people assume that you're a certain way.
Yeah.
I will say this. The people who are professionally in like positions of power, like
Hmm.
say like like a lawyer or a CEO or something. I've actually found like I'm just speaking from a man looking at women who are in those positions where you think like what a strong, and this is a delusion, dominant alpha female,
Right.
like climbing the corporate ladder, doing all this shit. Like, oh my gosh, she must be this dominant alpha personality. Turns out in the bedroom, she is like the most submissive woman you will ever meet. And I know you're probably like, what? But
Yeah.
let me explain why. Because in their day-to-day life, that's the role they have to play. Like I am in this position of dominance. I have to make all these decisions and I'm in charge of everything. And guess what? To be frank, that is stressful on those people. It's
Yes.
a stressful thing to conduct your day-to-day life like that. And so for a lot of these people, at least sexually, what they say is like, look, in my job and like through most of my day, I have to be in charge and I have to be assertive. So when I get home, the last thing I want to do is to continue that. So when they get
Right.
home, the one thing they want to do is be the complete opposite. Like I want to be put in a position where I make no decisions, I have no power, I'm not in charge. You're in charge of me. You tell me what to do. like they want to be the complete opposite person in the bedroom than they have to be out in the corporate world. And when it's explained to me like that, I'm like, that makes a hell of a lot of sense.
That's really interesting. And I'm sure, of course, the converse is true too. If you feel kind of powerless in your daily life, or you feel like you're serving people, and then you get into like the situations you're describing, you might take a completely different role just to experience that power.
Yeah, yeah, and it's kind of uncomfortable for me to like think about that because I was beat up pretty good by my dad growing up, and of course to come with that are feelings of like, oh my gosh, I'm in a completely powerless position. I get beat up and I'm not able to fight back really. So maybe subconsciously that had something to do with that, but thankfully it's a thing where when I engage in this, I don't engage in it abusively, because a lot of people suspect that, hey, when you're abused, you turn out abusively. And I think the way I did it is when I looked at my dad, I said, you know what? I hated him for what he did so much that I made a decision that's like, I'm going to be the complete opposite of you.
Yes.
And so because I hated what happened to me so much, I was like, I'm never going to do that to other people. And that might be my rationale for where my philosophy on nonviolence comes in, my sexual preferences being for domination as opposed to submission. Though I will say for a couple years, I was actually a switch, if you know what that means.
No, what does that mean?
It means you're a dominant, but you're also a submissive in certain situations.
Oh, okay.
So I would actually dominate women, but I would actually be a submissive to other men, and not sexually, but it's more of the bondage thing. Because in my mind, the way I reasoned it when I was in that phase was that, okay, I like some sort of realism to like a bondage role play when it happens. I was like, I really, and no offense, okay, but on the whole, women are physically not as strong as a man is. So I would say, like, if I'm a man, if I'm going to be like taken, like, overpowered and tied up, I always imagine that it would probably be another man who would do that, not necessarily a woman like overpowering me and pinning me down and like talking to me. That didn't really register in my head. I was like, I can imagine doing that to a woman, but not having it done to me by her. So that's why I sought out men in order for me to experience the other side of it. But one thing that helped is being on the other side. Being a submissive for a few years actually made me a better dominant. It really did, because when you've experienced that position of vulnerability, when it was time for me to give that out, because I also felt that same fear and apprehension and anxiety that any new submissive feels when they're getting tied up for the first time, I'm more empathetic. I'm more sympathetic to what they're going through, because it's like, hey, I know the whole concoction of emotions you're experiencing right now because I've been through it myself. I've been there. I've been on the other side. And it actually made me better at what I do. So I'm actually thankful for those years where I actually played both sides of the fence, really.
Yeah, that's probably make the best experience, to be able to know both sides instead of just assume, well, the person probably feels like this, or they're probably like that. I mean, of course, individual reactions will vary, since, we all have our own different set of emotions. But I mean, within a certain amount, I'm sure the main feelings that someone would experience on that side. So it does make a lot of sense.
Yeah. So it helped, but that's wait. Why did I even say that? I'm sorry. Did I go off for no reason?
What do you mean?
No, I mean, like, I don't even know why I went into that story. Where was I going?
It's cool. It's fine. I don't know, actually. But
where the hell did that come from?
I think it's because we were going off of the question originally, and then it kind of just progressed. But those make the best conversations, instead of everything just goes into a little box and you're done question next. You kind of just go off on tangents and talk about things, and like that's a good way to get to know someone and where their mind's going, right? So it's interesting. There's no problem with going off on tangents. My whole channel, I think, is a tangent in itself.
Yeah. Well, like, you are acting as my mental health professional, so I guess this is like therapy for me. I need someone to talk to.
Oh boy. Yes, you're fake mental health provider, let's remember, in quotations. So
well, you seem highly qualified to me, because I mean, honestly, it's just, like, even though I've made myself more public than usual, like, for instance, that story of being a switch, like, I don't tell that part. I really don't divulge to people. So, because it's kind of tough, because now that it's out there, MGTOW are probably going to know about it. It's like, and they're going to wonder, like, like, what Immortal? Are you like bisexual? Are you are you closet gay or something? And it's gonna suck to have to explain all that, but it's just they don't comprehend that for me. Like bondage and sex can be completely separate. Like I can have a bondage session with a man and have it not be sexual, but unfortunately for ignorant people, they're not going to be able to separate the two.
Yeah, and I get where you're coming from. It sounds like it's just a way to experience things and to learn things. It's like a learning experience, not necessarily has to be anything more than that.
Yeah, yeah, exactly. So anyway, but some people may not get that, but you're of a mature mind, so you seem to understand that oh, I know why he did that, because from a rational standpoint, if he wants to experience the role play of being overpowered and tied up, it would probably be another man who would do it in real life. So
Yeah,
that's just how I reasoned it. But but yeah, I think getting back to what they were saying. So my advice at the end of the day would be, and you're going to laugh at me, of course, but don't get married, don't have kids, and also be sure you are 100% sexually compatible. As much as it depends on you, because like you said, preferences and tastes may change. But
yes.
all you can expect to do is be honest with what you find sexually appealing right there at that moment, and just go with that.
Exactly. No, that's very good advice. And I think we'll end on this comment from one of the viewers right now. He says, "Damn, I want to try BDSM now." Look what you've done, Immortal.
Oh God, yeah, I'm polluting minds all over the world.
No, that's hilarious. But I think we went for a lengthy time. I think you'll be satisfied with an hour and 45 minutes. It was a good convo, so I didn't want to cut it short, and I don't have any obligations at the moment, so it was very enjoyable to kind of learn a bit more about you. And I really, all the viewers that are watching or anyone's going to watch after, please check out Immortal's channel. I have it linked down below, and subscribe and follow him, because you're going to have, like you said, some more serious topics. You're going to have some more fun things, comics and such, right? A whole variety of different things on your channel.
Oh yeah, yep. So but thank you so much, Lisa, for, I mean, because I know you went way over time, but like you're saying, I think it was worth it, because we were pretty much talking about stuff that really was worth talking about the entire time, and you're really grateful and a gracious host, and was really honored to be just one of many who was grateful enough to have an interview with you. I really am honored by it.
Excellent. Yeah, I had a great time too, and I hope to do this again sometime soon, and maybe do some different topics. But you're a good guest on here, so it's no problem, Immortal.
Oh, thank you, Lisa, and likewise, I just as fun of a time. So you have a wonderful rest of your day, and I guess to everyone in your family, happy Mother's Day to all of them. I'm sure you're going to go celebrate.
Yes, thank you so much, and I'll talk again soon, Immortal.
Okay, take care.
You too. Bye.
Bye.